Today we will hear from our witnesses on U.S. Special Operations Forces and Command on challenges and resource priorities for fiscal year. The op-tempo for Special Operations continues to put demands on the force, even with the major force drawdowns from Iraq and Afghanistan almost 5 years ago. Recent consolidation and downsizing of forces in Syria and Iraq bring only minor relief as our Special Operations Forces continue counterterrorism efforts against violent extremist organizations, military proxies, and non-state actors in both of those countries, as well as an increase of op-tempo on the continent of Africa, ongoing operations in the Western Hemisphere, and now requirements related to the ongoing operations supporting the fight in Iran. Special operators have adapted to meet the challenges of an evolving landscape of great power competition in every corner of the globe, while continuing to aggressively attack violent extremist organizations and transnational criminal networks, all in an effort to protect the homeland. Our adversaries are using cutting-edge technology, economic incentives, and illicit activities, and the battlefield has become increasingly contested and denied by the proliferation of peer adversary capabilities and malign influence. Special operations continue to be one of our most valuable tools in our toolbox, used to showcase our dominance, to impose cost on our adversaries, to reestablish deterrence, and to provide the nation with a position of advantage should deterrence fail. We ask a lot of our Special Operations Forces, and the demands both on and for them will only continue to grow. It is critical we provide these elite operators and all that support them with the resources that they need. I was disappointed in the fiscal year 26 budget submission for SOCOM from the Department of War. This committee worked diligently with SOCOM to provide critically needed resources to fill the gaps from over a decade of stagnant flat budgets through the reconciliation process, only to have the department submit a budget with a reduction to SOCOM, making the budget a wash and still flat. SOCOM's purchasing power has been reduced by 14% since 2019, despite increasing demand for support worldwide. I am, however, optimistic about President Trump's direction to include a significant increase in the fiscal year 27 defense budget and what this will mean for SOCOM in the future. I look forward to reviewing the budget and putting SOCOM on a path that increases to get them to a steady state of at least $20 billion annually in their budget. We look forward to hearing how Congress can best support SOCOM such that you can continue to provide the high return on investment the nation requires while simultaneously modernizing for the challenges of the future.
The U.S. is facing an increasingly turbulent global world order trained by accelerating strategic competition among major powers, more intense and unpredictable transnational challenges, and multiple. The bar to access advanced technology like AI, drones, and complex cyber tools has never been lower, allowing non-state actors and violent extremist organizations to punch above their weight, enabling them to destabilize countries and negatively influence our partners and our allies. The challenges and threats of today and tomorrow demand the full attention of this administration and the Department of Defense. I urge them to especially consider how we support the unique capabilities of the Special Forces community, who are called upon to assist combatant and functional commands and their campaigns at a rapidly increasing tempo. For more than 20 years, the Special Forces community has served as the primary tool in the fight against terrorism and countering violent extremist organizations. And while we still need to maintain that capability and not lose sight of those hard-won gains, we must also prepare to face future challenges. I share the chairman's concerns in this regard, given the tremendous amount of strain and resourcing that's been placed on your command. It simply has not kept pace with inflation, resulting in a 14% reduction in buying power since. Despite this stagnation, there has been a 35% increase in combatant command demand for special operations capabilities. So in a rapidly changing threat environment, a special operator is one of the country's greatest advantages and remains so today. It is our job to ensure we continue to hone and support this highly capable and agile force, including resourcing critical gaps in SOCOM funding. So I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about how they are prepared to do this, what is needed for deterrence, and how we're going to meet this increasing challenge of skyrocketing demand while diminishing resourcing.
State adversaries, terrorist organizations, and transnational criminal networks are increasingly aligned, technologically enabled, and active across domains and regions. To answer these challenges, the National Defense Strategy marks a fundamental shift, directing the Department of War to implement a flexible, realistic approach to protect America's interests. Comprising only 3% of the Joint Force and less than 2% of the department's budget, roughly equivalent to the procurement cost of a single aircraft carrier, SOF delivers outsized strategic value. SOF provides senior leaders with scalable, tailorable, and asymmetric options across the full spectrum of competition and conflict. From the Western Hemisphere across the Indo-Pacific to the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and beyond, SOF has been decisive in defending the homeland, deterring China, and enabling our partners and allies. Should deterrence fail, SOF is postured with the joint force to prevail in high-end conflict. With our culture of rapid adaptation and agile problem solving, SOF accelerates the adoption of disruptive technologies, seeding investments in unmanned and autonomous systems, counter UXS, cyber and electronic warfare, and rapidly delivering tools to warfighters at the point of need. In accordance with the law and congressional guidance, of which we are immensely grateful, the department has taken decisive and concrete steps to institutionalize SOLIC's oversight and advocacy role. This transformation moves us beyond the old advisory construct to a true exercise of authority, direction, and control. While the maturation of these initiatives is ongoing, these foundational changes fulfill congressional intent and provide the oversight mechanisms needed to shape force structure, guide budgetary and planning processes, and forge the future of SOF. The optionality that SOF delivers requires resourcing and investments. To maintain our competitive edge, SOF needs sustained partnership, predictable resourcing. I commit to continued collaboration with Congress and to make full use of my position in the department and alongside the services to ensure SOF remains resourced, ready, relevant, and accountable, and to ensure they can meet today's mission while transforming for tomorrow's challenges.
Distinguished members of this committee, we meet at a crucial moment. As you've said, today's security environment is defined by state adversaries, terrorist organizations, and criminal networks that are increasingly aligned, technologically enabled, and active across every domain. Our national defense strategy highlights the potential of simultaneity as a central problem, and your SOF is the key component of its prescription. Today's environment rewards forces that can operate persistently and decisively, often below the threshold of armed conflict, generating irregular effects by, through, and with our allies and partners in order to produce a whole effect that is much greater than the sum of its parts. Your special operations forces provide that capability. This means we are laser focused on maintaining the readiness required to protect the homeland, to deter aggression from our pacing challenge, China, and to enable true burden sharing by enabling and empowering the growing capacity of our allies and partners. It is executed by the most decisive advantage that we have, our people, empowered by a culture of meritocracy, supported by critical programs that you have helped manifest, like the preservation of the force and family, to ensure that these exceptional men and women can succeed in the complex of environments of tomorrow, increasingly encroaching upon today. We are making transformation our imperative. We must adapt faster than our adversaries, and we must evolve to leverage the ubiquitous information environment that presents both a challenge and an opportunity. We must evolve our force design, accelerate capability development, and strengthen our partnerships with the services and allies to stay ahead of emerging threats. As a department's lead for experimentation and autonomy, we are not just adapting, we are driving change. We are working with the services to incorporate next-generation capabilities, systems that are precise, autonomous, affordable, consistent with the law of war. The goal is to deliver these tools with the element of surprise from unwarned access and placement at scale. You see, SOF defends the homeland by dismantling threats far from our shores, disaggregating terrorist networks. We deter aggression by strengthening the resilience of our alliance, illuminating and exposing adversary malign behavior that preys upon our partners and allies. However, our ability to accomplish this is not guaranteed. It requires accelerated modernization and your continued partnership. SOF was purpose-built for this era of competition, and we can provide an indispensable asymmetric advantage for the joint force and the nation. And with your continued support, we will meet today's missions while transforming to ensure that we are ready for the challenges of tomorrow.
Admiral Bradley, I know you've only been in command for a little over 5 months now, and I suspect you are most likely still assessing various aspects of the command, but what would you say the top 3 challenges are this fiscal year to sustain your 3 soft lines of effort, which are win, people, and transform? And what do we need to do here in Congress to help you succeed in that?
Our first priority is always to maintain readiness for the current threats that are out there. Crisis response is that top priority for us, being able to respond agilely to wherever it might present. And of course, the demands on that, as have been mentioned, have been 300% increase over these last 5 years. that pace of growing usage but diminishing resources was causing us to have to eat into our modernization budget to be able to cash flow those current operations. Number one, to be able to project force into increasingly contested environments where our adversaries are posing threats against us. Number two really is to take advantage of the fact that there is this ubiquitous information environment, ubiquitous technical surveillance that it's out there. The cyber and the virtual domain are critical maneuver spaces that we must take advantage of. Of course, another aspect of the rapidly evolving, changing character of warfare is the emergence of abundant lethal autonomy. And yes, that is a threat that we have to contend with, but it's also one that we can leverage.
In the combined written statement that was submitted, you state that SOCOM comprises only 3% of the joint force and less than 2% of the department's budget, delivering, I quote, an outsized strategic value. I personally believe SOCOM's budget needs to increase to a steady state of at least $20 billion a year. What do you think the future budget looks like for SOCOM?
As far as echoing what Admiral Bradley spoke about in our modernization, as we continue to modernize, we see that technology typically, and I've heard various different ranges, but technology ends up being obsolete within 6 months. So our operators that are operating on the ground, not only utilizing the technology that they have internal to the department, but also training by, with, and through our partners. And then one of the other priorities I just like to highlight, Mr. Chairman, is the POTIF program, the Preservation of the Force and Family.
Section 863 of the FY26 NDAA required the establishment of the SOCOM Urgent Innovative Technologies and Capabilities Initiative with funding that was allocated in the 2025 Budget Reconciliation Act. When do you expect to begin implementing this requirement, and how does it nest with SOCOM's transformation imperative?
To identify it, articulate it, move resources to be able to execute against it, field it, and get it out in a very rapid manner to be able to test, evaluate whether it's credible for the combat situations it might have to face. The authority given in 863 and the resources to be able to allow that to happen makes us able to execute that more quickly. All of those are really looking to take advantage of some of the pathways that SOCOM and SOLIC have been able to chart over the years, and then extrapolate them out across the broader joint force.
I wanted to begin on something that I think that Special Operations Forces are uniquely equipped and trained to do, and that is working with civilian populations, building trust. And a part of that is this understanding, and I worked in the community, this understanding that you're going to do everything possible to protect local forces, that built in the mission planning process is protecting civilians, reducing civilian casualties, because nothing sets back years sometimes of trust building and relationship building than an errant strike, than killing civilians. It's not just inefficient and immoral and unlawful in certain circumstances, but it actually makes it harder for us to do our mission, which is why this committee in Congress in the FY19 NDAA required DOD to develop a comprehensive policy for preventing civilian harm, which it did. The tactical element of a mission, but then lose the end game if the people that you're fighting with and working with actually don't trust you and support you. Those efforts have been slashed in the last year. The personnel that have been embedded in the combatant commands have been largely taken away, and it seems like a terrible missed opportunity, but also a strategic error to not equip our operators and our forces with the tools they need to comprehensively address our adversaries and build the trust in our alliances. In that vein, Secretary Anderson, on February 28th, there was a girls' elementary school in Iran that was struck. Public reports say that 175 civilians, many of them children, were reportedly. Is that preliminary investigation complete, and was there a 15-6 that came out of that?
And what I can say is that the investigating officer is a general officer outside of the CENTCOM chain of command. So there will be an unbiased, impartial investigation that's conducted. But I think you bring up a good point is what we've done within the command structure. If you look at from when a SOF operator is training at the ground level all the way through a general officer, now they're taking civilian harm and ensuring that it is mitigated throughout the entire process.
Can you clarify, and this isn't a gotcha, I'm just honestly asking the question. So there has not been a preliminary investigation that's been completed. The initial investigation by CENTCOM is still underway?
No, Congressman, as you're well aware with the civilian harm mitigation, there'll be initial investigation to determine whether or not a 15-6 should be opened.
And now there's a 15.
And there's a 15-6 open that's
Okay.
going to be a full investigation, Congressman.
And the preliminary investigation, did it determine that our U.S. Armed Forces carried out the strikes on the elementary school? I wanted to go to one of your comments about lethal autonomous drones, right? It's happening, right? Our adversaries are doing it. There's been a lot of debate about the morality, the legality of taking a human outside of the kill chain in making that decision ourselves. You had mentioned, Admiral Bradley, you said lethal autonomous authority is happening. We need to leverage that ourselves. Are you saying that there's been a decision within the administration that we will allow lethal autonomous authority with drones?
Congressman, I believe we employ lethal capability that has an amount of autonomy in it every day. Any of our IR guiding missiles has an amount of that baked into it.
Sitting here today, is there a human in the kill chain?
There is always a human in the kill chain.
Okay. Is there a debate about taking a human out of the kill chain?
That the law of armed conflict and the law of war requires a human to be the decider about where and how any lethal force should be delivered, no matter the vessel of that lethal force. It should be a human that's making that decision.
I too have the concerns about the budget constraints and what it's doing to modernization. I want to get to the proposed $3,000 billet reduction in forces. And Secretary Anderson, I understand it's predominantly intelligence analysts, logistical staff, and psychological operations that you intend to make that the reductions will come from. Is that correct? Ask, in the psychological operations, does that include what we would refer to as information warfare?
Well, Congressman, I would say that there's information operations, there's psychological operations.
I think it would be a good use of time for our military to study how effective the Russians have been on the continent of Africa with information warfare and how effective they've been at getting the French kicked off of the continent. And it has created significant challenges for us in that continent. And I want to make sure that that part of today's warfare not ignored, because we have to embrace it. We can see what they're doing and know what they're doing, and yet we have not been countering it at an effective rate, and speed matters with that. So sticking with Africa, Russia, Africa Corps now, Wagner Group, used to be Wagner Group, and China, they're both expanding their security roles in Africa. What specific risk does this create for the U.S. national security, for our need for critical minerals, and our ability to operate in Africa?
I think one of the critical things in the information space that we have to do, and it gets specifically to your point about critical minerals and other threats on the African continent, is lever the high ground in information operations. That is the truth. And in almost every case, our adversaries are leveraging their positions for malign influence against the population's interests. And merely what we can do to be most effective is tell the truth and highlight that.
So sticking to Africa, we lost the key access point in Niger. Admiral, what has that done to the operational impact, your ability to conduct counterterrorism missions in Africa? How has this impacted SOF's ability with regard to speed in a crisis response?
Congressman, West Africa has been a particularly volatile region over the last several years, and a number of countries that have changed leadership. In particularly in the case of Niger, as several of the others, I would tell you that our soft, generational, long-standing relationships with the professional military to military forces there have helped us to maintain some contact in these troubling times.
Admiral Bradley, the department has emphasized that adversaries like China, Russia, and Iran are increasingly operating through proxies, criminal networks, and influence campaigns below the threshold of armed conflict. How central are special operations forces to countering those activities, and do you believe SOCOM currently has the authorities and resources required to compete effectively in that space?
Today, there are more than 6,500 SOF operators and enablers deployed around and in 80 different countries. To your point about the influence operations that our adversaries are conducting, in most cases, those are designed to prey upon our allies and our partners, to be able to use that malign behavior to be able to gain gain unwarned access and leverage. Our ability to be able to illuminate that malign behavior and then to pass it and make our partners aware of it. And to your question about authorities, I would just reckon back to the 127 programs, a critical capability to us to be able to do that, and we do believe those authorities are robust and appreciated.
SOCOM represents only about 3% of the joint force, yet combatant commanders continue to request support from special operation forces across nearly every theater. Does the demand for special operation forces currently exceed sustainable levels? And also, what risk does that create for readiness and retention within the forces?
I would say to affirm, they are asking for more than we have to offer every year since I've been paying attention to that. This last year was about 70 different asks that we could not satisfy. That budget reduction or that budget, the buying power reduction over the last 5 to 6 years has limited our ability to be able to modernize. With the few resources we have that are in higher and higher demand, to be able to make them more useful, we need to modernize them for the future.
Thanks, Admiral. Looking 5 to 10 years ahead, what do you believe is the greatest strategic risk facing the special operation enterprise? And what is the one area where congressional support would have the greatest impact on SOCOM's ability to succeed?
If you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have defined the most dangerous crisis of the future probably being in Iran or an Iranian surrogate or proxy force threatening freedom of navigation in and around the Middle East. And so that most dangerous crisis of 10 years ago is the most likely crisis that we face today. I would anticipate that along those same lines, the ability to project force into increasingly contested environments where U.S. national interests are threatened is the characterization of the next most dangerous crisis. And that is why that we have made our ability to do that our top modernization priority. If you look at the operation conducted under absolute resolve into Venezuela, I would argue the most sophisticated, integrated interagency joint force raid ever conducted. You get a peek at the modernization pathway that the joint force is on, and it is that ability.
Specifically highlighting, and you asked Congressman, what are one of the things continued support for those 127 programs are absolutely essential to ensuring that we maintain that value proposition. What one ODA or one SEAL team is able to accomplish is absolutely astronomical for the joint force. So, and then lastly, again, Admiral Bradley hit it on the head, was our modernization efforts, ensuring that we utilize autonomy and AI to efficiently conduct staffing, all of those things that allow us to focus on operational needs.
Admiral Bradley, MILCON funding for construction projects is about $509 million, one of which Soft Human Performance Training Center. What is that?
Congressman, that is one of our integrated facilities where we're able to bring together the Preservation of the Force and Family program to be able to provide synchronized and integrated care for our operators who are either returning from service from an injury or who are enhancing their performance to be able to go out on the next missions.
Is it a NICO-like institute? What is the, and I hate to put you on the spot on this one, Admiral, but what does that look like? I've spent my entire post-military career trying to find the best, I don't want to say pipeline, but training mechanism for the brain and the body combined. Our special operations forces, we demand the boat teams and has to be there quicker. It's a rugged ride. I don't know a boat operator that retires that can stand up straight. Most of them don't have their kidneys anymore and everything is wrong with them, but we push them harder and we push them faster. SDVs, how deep can you dive? How long can you go? How cold can you sustain? How cold can it be and you can sustain yourself to be mission capable? We keep going and we keep going and we keep going. Our operators are carrying heavier rucksacks because we keep throwing technology on top of them, just weighs more than anything. Push harder. Push faster. And we don't ever, I'm not wire brushing you, sorry, this is the time that I get to vent, thank you. But we do not take the time, in my personal opinion, to take care of you from start to finish, baseline assessment to the time that you quit. And when we have these performance facilities that were popping up, I want to know what's in it. I mean, this is the special operators in the United States of America is the most amazing asset. And I think we've not done our best to take care of them because, and everyone in this room that's wearing a uniform right now needs to listen to what I'm saying to you. Because when you do leave and you fall into that deep, dark, black hole, because you're not here anymore and you're alone, I think there's something we can do to catch the trajectory of change of that. But if we can help inside the DOD, inside the community, inside of our house, that is a win.
And it is exactly that aim of community that these centers and the POTUF program is allowing us to develop. This holistic care, and it is very much modeled after the lessons from the various NICO facilities and many others that are templated around the world, has been able to reduce the stigma to a point where some 50% of our formations in some cases are making use of our behavioral health specialists now. I think that is one of the most important and the most telling statistics that we've got of the success of the program that POTUF has been able to fund for us. Who are injured back to full duty, 75% reduction in that time. 50% reduction in the amount of time that it takes for somebody to get access to first care. In order to take advantage of that, and we do, through publicly available information, commercially acquirable information, and when appropriate, authorized and within legal bounds, clandestinely accessible information, we can know incredibly more about both our adversaries and the societies within which those adversaries are operating. Congressman, any reduction, of course, has to be adjusted, and most of those billets that are being adjusted and moved out are in the intelligence, communications, and logistics disciplines. And we completely understand why and how they're doing that, because frankly, the services recognize that they need to build the same kind of capability that SOF has leveraged to be able to manifest this, but it does come at a cost.
And Mr. Secretary, you know, with social media and AI rising right now, and we know that this is a 24/7 information warfare. We can just look at the most recent example with Iran right now, how we run overseas influence campaigns with the speed of this modern warfare that we're in.
I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but when we and Admiral Bradley talk about modernization, that is truly what it comes from. So we've been working, and as you're well aware, Congressman, a majority of those service members preside in the Army, but we've worked with United States Army Special Operations Command and looking at what that future looks like, because as we talk about modernization, autonomy, AI, all those other things, our information warriors, our cyber warriors are at a different type of level than, say, I or Admiral Bradley.
And especially, you know, with Iran cutting off 90% of the internet access, I think it's important that we don't also lose sight in the most basics.